So, dann mache ich jetzt 3, 2, 1 und starte.
Yeah, welcome everybody. Happy New Year. I'm not sure if we can still say this. It's already 25th of January, so maybe we should start with Happy Easter soon, or Happy Carnival, which is approaching soon. With this panel discussion, we would like to foreshadow a little bit what we are expecting in 2023, but we would also like to compile the multiple domains here, which are primarily crypto assets on the one hand side, digital securities, digital assets on the other hand side, maybe also digital euro, but this topic, digital euro, is progressing slowly. Anyway, maybe we can do a separate panel discussion on the digital euro topic next month. Let's see how it goes. With this, I would like to directly ask you whether every one of you can briefly present himself, herself, and as you can see with the new year, we are also increasing diversity. So we are now are close to be balanced with regard to gender equality, maybe at least this time. Let's hope that we can proceed with this. Happy to have you all here. And now, who wants to briefly present himself, herself, and the company he's working for? Who wants to get started?
I can happily start if nobody else raises their hand. Yeah. I'll take it away. My name is Max. I'm head of sales and marketing at 21E6 Capital. We're a Swiss-based crypto investment advisor. So we've built a database of around 1,000 up to 1,200 crypto funds that we've analyzed in depth. And I also do a lot of our research for content pieces. So a lot of our marketing is really concentrated around knowledge pieces and articles which are available. So I spend a decent amount of my time, of course, being in touch with the ecosystem and trying to figure out what the topics are that are interesting for people and that people want to learn more about.
Perfect. I will ask you more details later on. Who's going to go next? Sandra?
Yeah, sure. Thank you. So I'm Sandra. I'm the Chief Strategy Officer of Interstack. Interstack is a joint venture between the Frankfurt School and Plutonio Consulting. And we're a consultancy for the financial industry, so for banks, for asset managers, for exchanges, custodians, you name it. And we are focusing on the strategic assessment of blockchain use cases and the implementation of digital assets and blockchain in the existing business models, in the existing IT infrastructure, in the legacy systems, etc., and helping the financial industry to move on with that topic. So we are a blockchain consultancy, really dedicated to that
with
topic.
A focus on the business and the financial dimensions, right?
Exactly.
That's also maybe if you now move on to Markus, maybe also one of the points you're differentiating yourself, because DeFi also has a very, very deep implementation background if desired. Markus, would you like to go next?
Yes, so I'm Markus. I'm a senior manager with DeFi, so I'm in a consultancy since like roughly 10 years. And within DeFi, we have a business unit focusing really on blockchain topics. So it starts with this topic, or everything about strategy, business models, target operating models. But we are also going really deep into the code. So like traditional kind of, say, IT, but also like blockchain IT, we can combine both. And that's why we're working with bank infrastructure providers, exchanges, and helping to set up their infrastructure and really integrating into their, say, processes and into their systems. That's from my side.
Excellent. And then finally, we have Sarah.
Yes, thank you. So my name is Sarah, and since January, so pretty new, I'm the managing director of BFG, Blockchain Founders Group, and we are focusing on building Web3 startups, Web3 crypto, blockchain, everything around that. And yeah, we are a company, and at the moment we start running the third cohort now. So if you're interested in building your own startup, maybe it's the right point in time to apply for our program. Super happy to be here today.
Perfect. So let's get started. We discussed previous to this session that we first would like to start with crypto assets, and thereafter we would like to address digital securities. So let's go with crypto assets first. Maybe Sarah, what are you seeing in the crypto assets domain? It's interesting to note that crypto, like the syllable crypto feels a little bit outdated, a little bit heavily hit by all the crises. So let's ask about Web3. It's technically the same, but it sounds much more positive. So what do you see, Sarah, in the space of Web3 startups? Because they are also foreshadowing a little bit the trends which could be observed this year and the years thereafter.
Yes, thank you so much for the question. So it's not, from my point of view, it's not that I only see like one special niche or something like that, but I really see a broad view, or I have a broad view at the moment, and I see many different things that are kind of coming up. So I think one of the really biggest things, and maybe we can dig deeper on that later on, but I just want to give a quick introduction, is like the whole refi space. So refi is at the moment one of the biggest things that are growing from my point of view. And it's super interesting because it combines people that have really, they kind of really want to earn money, whether financial background, but also with people that really want to kind of save the planet, help the environment. And this is like a really amazing mixture. So this is a space that is huge, getting really huge. I see many startups is at the moment in the educational space, but because I think education is still key and there's still so many people outside who do not understand what's going on. So I see really many startups in that area. I see payment systems coming up, especially in countries like Africa or China, where still some people are unbanked. And especially for small amounts and unbanked money, people, blockchain is a super, or is a perfect use case. So I see many startups in that area. And yeah, I think Metaverse is growing as well. I saw super interesting startups in the DAO area, because I think DAOs are getting more and more important as well. And I also see like infrastructure is growing, platform as a service offerings, cross-chain interoperability. All those topics are at the moment growing, and I'm pretty sure I've got some, because I think really so many different topics are ongoing, and I think it's like really, yeah, it's 2023 is I think definitely a year for building new topics.
Perfect. So what did we hear just now? Metaverse, payments, DAOs. Besides this, also the carbon tokenization space is hot. This also means that basically infrastructure solutions are maybe already there, such as Ethereum, and the dynamics in the infrastructure itself might decrease a little bit. Maybe Markus, coming from the technical side, would you agree with all these trends? Would you maybe add some with infrastructural stuff, DeFi and so on? Because interestingly, Sarah did not mention layer ones, yeah, because maybe because they have developed now quite a bit. And Sarah also didn't mention DeFi. Yeah, DeFi is there. DeFi is now running. DeFi works. It will be adopted, but maybe the hype is going elsewhere. For example, Metaverse. Markus, maybe you comment on Sarah and add things.
Yes, so I can comment a little bit. I mean, from the infrastructural side, I mean, there's this technology layer side. I mean, there's this kind of layer 2 solution, so we're getting scalability. So this is really important, like, you know, for say mass adoption, because layer 1 is way too slow. There's a lot of energy involved. I mean, surely the energy is going down with staking, but it's still really cumbersome. So layer 2 technologies are really important. And additionally, like to scaling, we see, say, really cool developments in privacy. I mean, I know that blockchains are like for for open data, but there's also like, say, a certain requirement in the industry. I mean, say, especially in the financial industry, where you have confidential transaction, where you have maybe some backdoors for regulators. So there's these kind of developments, these new kind of building blocks which are popping up and giving the industry, I would say, new play toys to build new financial, say, services.
Yeah, interesting. But let's move to digital assets part later on, because I guess you have much more to add on this later on. Max, Sandra, what do you see even more so in these domains? So now focusing on crypto and tokens.
Sure.
Max?
So I think I would maybe not disagree completely, but add a little bit of a different perspective. So I think that a lot of the cases Sarah mentioned, which are certainly hot areas right now, they are, as you mentioned, tightly linked to infrastructure, and also adoption and hardware on this kind of infrastructure level, and that by nature takes quite some time, because there are a lot of players that need to get onboarded. So I think, while I think it's good that attention is shifting to that because it needs to get going, that's an opportunity again for more decentralized solutions. So the metaverse in its decentralized state, for example, to really gain momentum again. So in the sense of DeFi, of course, it's working. I think there were some very interesting lessons learned in 2022 about revenues of protocols as well. So protocols need to make a revenue also in a bear market in order to work. And I think going forward, it can remain a very, let's say, dynamic field, because regulation, at least my hope is that this kind of regulation theme that we're going to see focuses on this connection of centralized world to blockchain. So that's exactly this kind of FTX topic. And the idea is that everything that is decentralized will remain, in part at least, unaffected by any kind of regulatory encumbrances or encouragements. We don't know what way it's going to go. So there's potential there to, again, outpace other developments.
Maybe I add a private comment here, because what you said is also something I try to reflect upon around Christmas, because I always, very often you see in the media and also in crypto discussions and blog articles that there is the decentralized world and then there is the centralized world, and both are fighting each other, and the user doesn't know where to go, decentralized or centralized. I think it's very much different, because it's complementary and it adds on top of this, because I would say that in the decentral world, you have all the innovation taking place. You have metaverses being developed, smart contracts, layer ones, and so on and so forth. Extremely creative, extremely innovative. Some of this stuff works, some of this stuff doesn't work. But because of the technical stuff, especially because of the self-custody and the wallets, this is only for the very small minority of a society. It's only for those people like us who are dealing with this topic and nothing else day by day. And it's only for those people who are understanding part of the technological stuff or want to deal with this stuff, right? And this is, of course, opposed to the other 98% of the population, which might at some point of time also be interested in Bitcoin, but they don't want to deal with the technicalities and so on and so forth. So the regulation is primarily addressing these 98%, because they also need secure solutions on how to invest. That's a crypto exchange, that's a bank, and so on and so forth. So in my mind, the decentral world and the centralized world, they are going hand in hand, but the decentral world is only for a geeky section of the society, that's us, knowing how to deal with the technology and wanting to know this. And the majority by large of the society cannot deal with the technology this way, but they also do not want to do it, but they are still interested, for example, in investing. So providing legally secure systems and solutions such as Börse Stuttgart, Coinbase, and many others who have a license in Germany, they are required, because only then the majority can potentially also invest in a secure way. And therefore we need regulation. With absence of regulation, what happens? FTX. And therefore we have to have regulation, otherwise it doesn't work. And now, how is this interlinked? The decentral world creates innovation day by day, and then the central world is on a very, very, very low frequency, taking out a couple of those innovations, let's call it Bitcoin and Ethereum, and then does some stuff with it, tries to regulate it, is doing compliant solution, and then scales it up to millions of users. That's basically the story of Börse Stuttgart, for example, and others. But of course, this also explains why Börse Stuttgart is not doing DeFi. Why should they? DeFi is still in the experimental stage. That's basically some considerations I did, because I always found it difficult this struggle between the centralized world and the decentralized world. I don't believe in this struggle. It's more something like an innovation pipeline where innovation is created and then exploited later on by the centralized world. Any comments on this? Does it make sense? Does it not make sense?
Couldn't agree more. Couldn't agree more, Philip. This is actually the same thing we are seeing in the market. So after FTX, or after the second half of 2022, it was more, we see more and more financial institutions raising their hands and say, we step back from crypto and from our consideration to provide access or provide products or anything on that, because, oh, crypto scam again. So, and this is actually the wrong way to do that, because as a bank or as a financial institution, you are the trustworthy partner for your clients to provide access to investments, to financing, to payments. So, and we need these trustworthy partners which are regulated, and that's why we need this regulation to have secure access to this world for exactly these people you mentioned, Philip. We are not like the crypto natives or the crypto OGs on this world, but the ones who really want to enter that space and to experiment and to invest and to be part of it and learn. And this is why we really need these institutions to position in that field. And I really hope that we will see it a little bit more evolving this year, because I think we need always remind people that the market is anti-cyclic. So you need to position now, you need to build now to really provide this access and to offer something to exactly these people.
Makes very much sense. Markus.
Yeah, I can't agree more, because like, I mean, when you're seeing a decentralized world, you can't decentralize anything. You can't, for instance, decentralize the UI. So the thing is like, the central world is essentially like kind of a channel to the decentralized protocols. So there are many protocols for me. So there's nothing where you have, say, good user experience or anything. So you have to build channels. And especially what Sandra just mentioned, you need a kind of security layer. This is something I'm always involved in my projects, and to first build like, this kind of custodians where you just like cut the word crypto somehow, because I think the 89% they don't know what private keys essentially are, and they would maybe store them, say, on their hard drive. So you cut this thing away and really focus on user experience, interacting with say assets, interacting, say, with DeFi, and you have to really understand DeFi, and you need a layer above that, and this layer is normally centralized, because you're cutting out the security and delegating to another entity, and that's why also regulation must be involved. So
yeah,
I completely agree with
imagine also concerning financial inclusion, it really splits the society, right? Because those people who have the knowledge, they can participate in all these systems, they can invest money, they can get, I don't know, access to international payment networks with stable coins and so on. And then there is the non-techie larger share of the population, which is basically cut out from this development, right? That's you can see this in Africa, for example, where those people who have the technical knowledge, they can improve their life a little bit because they can move their money to US dollar stable coins and can avoid inflation. But in case you don't have the technical knowledge, you cannot do this.
I think I wouldn't agree with that, because like it's a kind of open protocol, so you can always like everybody can just connect to that. So the security question is still looming, I would say. So you can, for instance, like you can use smartphones and you can have like a crypto chip on that. So I wouldn't say it's as secure as, say, something like BlockNox or these kind of technologies, but I wouldn't say it's also not too far away from that. So
okay, interesting.
So you can build like mobile apps. So you say young startups can do that, and you can follow somehow this kind of self-custody way. I wouldn't say it's so secure. But the technologies are there to do that, and it gives access essentially to everybody, so that you can have like peer-to-peer transactions, and you can have young startups entering the space. But you have to really look into the security issues, because when you essentially lose your private key to your assets, you're kind of doomed. And I think there will be solutions in the future. Currently we have this crypto custody designs, and we're building say really kind of complicated solutions, and I think they're necessary. But I think down the road it's getting more kind of commodity, and it's getting more widespread, and you can offer it to much more people.
Yeah, good. Yeah, very good points. So the end devices, they might also be adding to this transformation. I would like to ask you about the metaverse. Has the metaverse already come? Will it come? How will it come? What we have seen so far, is it just media reporting, or is there already some metaverses out there which we could visit, or those out there, is it just experiments? What is the cycle, the life cycle of the metaverse? What's your opinion there? How far have we gotten?
Maybe I can add something to that.
Please.
So I think we are getting the building blocks. I think the metaverse is a kind of confluence of like different technologies, going from augmented reality, which we have, I think since my childhood, since the 80s, 90s, this is already there. The first ideas. we have these kind of digital economies, so starting with DAOs and these things. We're trying to digitalize economical links and interactions. We have the Web3 technologies. That we have identity, like SSI, self-running identities. We have slowly this concept of, say, super wallets, where you have all kind of, say, credentials, where you have assets. And I think if you bring everything together, I mean, we can build this kind of metaverse, but I think it's in a really, really early stage yet, because like the building blocks is there, and you have to get creative and just lay the groundwork. And I think the drive is there with Facebook.
No, sorry, Markus, please repeat.
Yeah, so I mean, say with Facebook, like, getting into the name of Meta, I think it just, pushed the kind of, say, inspiration into the market, to really go for it. I mean, there's no big player, but I think you can compete.
I mean, a couple things. I think we are, so like you said, last year was really just the tip of this kind of hype curve that we see, and then we're certainly probably at the top, and we're about to drop a little bit as people get more towards building. But I think what we mustn't forget along the road is that the reason the metaverse is so exciting is because it's so visual in nature. And this is a big problem with crypto assets and blockchain, etc., is that it's not very visual. People can't touch it, people can't see it, but they're supposed to trust it. And the metaverse is something that makes everything visual for you. It makes it immersive. It also means it's extremely interesting for visual industries. So, right, something we spoke about in the past is like architecture, interior design, way in the future, right? Automotive, let's say, presenting cars, banking as well. And people say, well, I want to, when I'm banking, I want to be communicating with a real person. That's not true, at least speaking for people I know in my generation. People don't want to have to go into their Sparkassen branch to sign a piece of paper. They want to be able to call or chat in their app. They don't feel the need for this human interaction. So the metaverse is just an extension of that. And I think we're only moving faster towards that.
Very interesting point. The visual component of the metaverse is very interesting because it can then be transported by the media, right? Like with the NFT images. I think this can be very exciting. What about the metaverse? Sarah, would you like to add?
Yes, of course. I just can add some thoughts. I agree with both already said. So I think it's like an extension of working together and learning together. Like we said, people don't necessarily need to go anymore, but they want to interact with somebody else. And this is like possible through the metaverse. And so I think it helps us for working together in a better way. And it also helps us, especially for education, I guess, because I think if we think about how we learn and how our brain works, if for example, a child looks at a book, it's totally different, or it's not that easy to learn something. But if the child can go to the metaverse and experience everything, it could be a totally different learning experience. And I think those 2 points, they might be super important for the future. And I think this is something that is getting more and more, and I totally see many people joining that. But at the moment, we are still like really at the beginning. I see many people joining like the first time, trying to figure out how everything works. But yeah, it takes a while, and then we kind of got used to it, and it will be part of our everyday life. But exactly. I guess it will take, if it's really part of our everyday life, I guess maybe 5 years.
And what we have seen last year with regard to Sandbox, Voxels, and Decentraland, of course, there were no visitors there because they are test implementations, right? Of what do you expect? So the media has been reporting massively about the metaverse. Consulting companies did as well, and so on and so forth. And apparently, according to these media reportings, the metaverse is there and it's existing already. But you know, from a PowerPoint level, it makes sense to argue this. But in case you really try to get into the metaverse, then I think you will see that there are only 2-3 digital environments available, and they are still in prototype mode. So apparently there is much more to be done in the future. What I have heard is, and I think that's also something we could briefly discuss before we switch over to the digital securities topic. I have heard that more than 50 virtual worlds in the metaverse are currently being programmed by some decentral projects. 50. That means that probably 40 are not functioning perfectly and will go down the drain, but maybe 10 will survive, and maybe 5 of these 10, they might be pretty good. That's developments coming from the decentralized world, with incentives provided to programmers, graphic designers, and so on and so forth, right? And now compare this to Facebook. Facebook is currently developing one such metaverse, and as you have seen, this one implementation of Metaverse has also created some technical issues, because avatars over there did not have any feed. You might remember the media in December, right? The feed were missing of the avatars in the Metaverse, in the Facebook's Metaverse. So you see here the innovation coming from the decentral world. Now the numbers of the metaverses currently being under development is really, really interesting. And I would expect maybe this summer that some of these metaverses will go live. And I could also expect that we are very, very positively surprised. What do you think? Might this happen, or is this a little bit too progressive?
I think it can happen. I think a lot of it depends on the state, let's say the state of the world at the time they are ready to go live. And I can imagine that developers would be ready to push back a release pending on the sentiment in the market. And they would like to capitalize, of course, on sort of a bull run. But given we keep going the way we've been going, at least these past 2 weeks in the space, I think it's a very interesting prospect that we see some new development in the area.
Has the time already come to create something like a Bitcoin tracker, but for metaverse tokens, or is it too early?
It's too early. So that's too early. You just don't have enough liquidity. There's not enough of them available right now. It's a good point. People are interested in how can I buy the metaverse. There are some Fidelity setting up an ETF for metaverse equities, so companies. So you can imagine biggest position will be Facebook in that fund. But as far as the
so
tokens
it will be
go,
a very badly performing fund.
Yes, it may be. But as far as the tokens go, you're definitely not there yet, because the volumes you would receive can't be reflected. Because realistically, you have only Sandbox and Decentraland trading, and even they are very low market cap coins right now. So,
interesting point. Okay, let's move over to the second larger chapter around digital securities. Maybe Sandra, where are we here right now? And then afterwards, directly same question to Markus. Where are we right now, especially now with the electronic, let's call it the nice American name, with the Digital Securities Act in Germany, auf Deutsch elektronisches Wertpapiergesetz. Where are we right now? The most fascinating word is Krypto-Wertpapierregisterführer. You know, that's so long and difficult to explain. But where are we right now? And is it nicely developing, or would you like to have it more speedier?
Yeah. So we see many financial institutions dealing with the topic of digital securities in one way or another. And they all have realized that it will or is really relevant for them. And it will have a huge effect on the financial industry and the way they are working and on their business models itself. So, and basically we have 3 big effects that really make them working on that. The first is that you can really make your entire settlement process more efficient. So through the tokenization of securities, through the digitalization of a lot of coordination processes, you can really shorten the settlement period, the calculation of withholding tax, etc. And by doing that, you can save costs. So we love that. So the first point is really cost reduction. The second point is for many financial institutions, they have the option through the Digital Security Act, or the crypto FAF in Germany, to register or to do the register management of the digital securities themselves. So they can become more independent from Clearstream, for example. Not in all the cases, it depends on the case, but in general, it's possible. So the second point is independence. And the third point is you can add then new digital distribution channels for your securities, for your fund units, your digital or crypto fund units when it comes to the crypto FAF. And this will be particularly important for the younger generations and to enable, for example, direct to customer distribution. So this would be then revenue potential or additional revenue. And these 3 points actually, like cost reduction, independence, and additional revenues or revenue potential, these make like the perfect business case, right? So, and these are also the effects which really drive the financial institutions to have a look at it. But we kind of stay here. So we look at it, they have a look on how is this whole thing affecting my internal system, my processes, my landscapes, etc. But we don't get both like a proof of concept because there are 2 things missing in this market to make the whole concept really efficient. And this is A, a regulated secondary market, and B, on-chain payments. So this was the digital euro thing you just mentioned before, Philip. And if we have these 2 things, we have like the missing 2 pieces of the whole puzzle, and we can open up the full potential of using blockchain as infrastructure in financial markets. And I really hope that, I'm not sure if you agree, Marcus, I really hope that we'll see the starting of developing these 2 missing pieces this year to really get there, because otherwise we will not go further out of this proof of concept phase.
Interesting point. Marcus, I think you're the perfect next person, also highlighting what you see in, for example, Frankfurt or also other financial centers.
Yeah, so what I'm seeing in project is that there's really a focus on the cost case. What Sandra just mentioned, because they say a bond can have a life cycle up to 20 years, and you can, by making process more efficient, you can save a lot of money essentially there. But as Sandra mentioned, I mean, there's really the problem of payments, or like to implement a corporate action. You have like roughly like 405 different corporations you have to each implement. Then you start probably with coupon payments, but something really simple, and you need digital euro. I mean, what you can do at the moment is like you can use trigger solutions, or you stick to kind of really simple bond structures where you just have have just a back payment at the end of the day, but no coupon payments, which is not really interesting, which is not really cost saving, but it helps you to build up the infrastructure. And this is what I'm currently what I'm seeing in the markets, that you focus on really kind of simple structures and first build the infrastructure around that. I mean, from the infrastructure side, I mean, you have to build the registry. I mean, this is still a challenge because there's some kind of technological part, especially on the security side, missing. So for instance, like for DeFi, we're doing a POC with the infrastructure provider, like to look into this kind of topic. We will present next year, this year in a few weeks maybe. And the other thing that I'm seeing is also like custodians looking at the pool bank is actually looking into this thing. And I mean, we have this cryptocurrency license, but I know for securities you need a little bit more, the pool license. Because you also have to do this kind of asset servicing part, and you have to build all these processes around. And I would say this is a huge undertaking and a really high investment you have to do as an infrastructure provider or any kind of player who wants to go into this market. It's possible there will be cost reductions at some point down the line, but first you have to do this investment. And what I'm also seeing is this kind of shifting from initially permissioned, consortia networks to more, public networks, because there's this realization that, when you're going permissioned or like in private networks, like Corda, yeah, it works, but you have to manage you have to manage the network somehow. You have to really build it from scratch, and there's a lot of friction, there's a lot of costs which is involved if you're going public.
And then Marcus, the prime reason why people a couple of years ago argued that enterprise blockchain systems have benefits is that Ethereum at that point of time had so high transaction costs that fees, minor fees, right? Then second, that basically the transaction duration is too long, 12 seconds. Then next, that you cannot really argue that the transaction is absolutely fully final, because it has a high probability, but it's not 100% final, and so on and so forth. And all these benefits have been, all these disadvantages have been ruled out over the last 2-3 years, with Polygon emerging and many others, such that basically transaction fees have been driven down, transaction speed has gone up, and so on, such that now enterprise solutions are not a hot topic anymore. And it's there was a time 3-4 years ago when it was really reasonable to argue that enterprise blockchain systems will evolve as a second huge pillar next to decentral networks, but it really had turned out differently. For example, we, on behalf of the Blockchain Center, we had done the first R3 Corda workshop in Germany to help educate the financial industry, right? And we were very proud of this, and R3 Corda was proud of this as well. And at the end of the day, there was no benefit in this, because R3 Corda is not that dynamic anymore. I'm not sure if it's still alive. I don't know, but it's not a hype topic anymore. For example, when we have now conceptualized our master in blockchain, which we launched last autumn, then the question was which topics to include, because we don't want to change the curriculum month by month, right? So yes, we included Bitcoin and Ethereum and DeFi and all kinds of other topics, but we did not include Hyperledger. And we also did not include R3 Corda, right? So that means we are also not educating in this field anymore. So the pipeline of newly educated people, at least from us, is basically shrinking to zero, at least from us. Other universities might have decided differently. But it's very interesting how this dynamic changed over the years, because DeFi, so Markus, you also had done workshops in R3 Corda to explore the technology, and nowadays nobody asks anymore so much for this technology, right? It's very interesting to go back in time and analyze what did work and what did not work.
Yeah, completely right. This is a kind of, this blockchain, landscape or this DLT landscape where things moving super quickly, and you have to super agile, and you have to always revisit your decisions. And this is what you're open. Maybe I add also some points. This is kind of why they're going to public. This is okay. Scaling is solved. There's still some looming issues. Especially in the privacy sphere, where we had recent developments like with sticky snarks, where you can say, okay, you have this kind of privacy layers. You have this Merkle protocol where you have privacy for between two parties, but also and the regulator can look into the transaction. So there's a lot of development, especially in recent months, recent years, or the last 2 years, I would say, essentially, which gave also big players the confidence to look into that. There's still a problem that Ethereum or Polygon or Cardano or any of these kind of blockchains is it's kind of DAO. It's not like a company with SLA on these things. So, but I think people will wrap their head around that at this point.
Yeah. Somebody wants to add something?
Yeah, maybe a quick thought, because we had been talking about what happened in the past, and you said, Philip, that it's super interesting to look back. And I was at the beginning of December last year, I was thinking about what might be interesting for 2023. And now before that panel, I was also thinking again through, okay, what might be interesting? And there's one topic that I wasn't aware that much at the beginning of December. And now it seems to be so clear for me. And this is, and I didn't said it before, but now it just popped up to my mind. It's blockchain and AI. Everybody knows, sorry. Everybody knows ChatGPT at the moment, so it's like a huge hype, and we know that there further versions are coming. And from my point of view, I already talked to 2 startups that I kind of started working on the topic, combining blockchain and AI. And for example, a super smart or easy example is that you have a smart contract that includes AI-based decisions. So you can enhance the smart contracts with AI. And I think this is something, for example, that might be or can be super powerful for the future. And I think it just started, and it might be maybe it's one of the biggest topics for 2023. And I just started reading about it, and I think it's just super interesting, and we should really try to understand more what's coming in that way.
Yeah, I discussed this with a friend a little bit of time ago, and we came up with the following use cases to nail it down. For example, an AI at some point of time will not just spit out text like it is doing today. At some point of time, the AI is doing decisions, and it will also then decide where to spend money to purchase something, right? It will be an AI which is spending money to get something, right? And what is better suited than a blockchain network for doing these expenses and, for example, also to earn revenue as an AI, you know? How far is this away? 2 years, 3 years as first prototypes? It's not that far away. And the other point of time is, you know, making AI algorithms accountable such that you, in retrospect, with blockchain networks can analyze how did this decision emerge, what data have gotten in, such that basically the AI is getting accountable based on this notary function of blockchain networks. That's 2 points which we came about, but probably there are 100 more. That's very interesting. It's interesting that you're mentioning this. Probably that's the next hype. Let's go back for one question concerning digital securities, especially in Germany. What's hotter? Is it the Schuldverschreibungen, that's basically debt instruments, or is it the digital funds? Because both are possible in the Digital Securities Act, right? Where do you see more dynamic, with Schuldverschreibungen or with digital funds? I don't know how to translate digital Schuldverschreibungen.
Bearer bond, but
bearer bond, true.
Yeah. The most traffic we see is in the fund industry. So really the crypto fund unit or electronic fund unit depends on what you want to do, but there's more traffic because I think the bearer bond is a really specific financial instrument which does not really fit into too many needs of companies or issuer who want really to get like money in this way. But the fund unit thing it's really huge because you have the whole settlement stuff, you have the whole subscription and redemption, the withholding tax calculation, etc., which you can really automate kind of with using blockchain technology. And you have the new distribution channel because we have a huge issue in the fund industry. The whole settlement process is quite inefficient. It's really expensive. You have this dependency with Clearstream because you need to issue a global certificate for every fund you issue. And then you have like a lot of costs you need to provide your client with. And you have like really tough sales channels right now. And you can add like digital trade, everything I said, like these 3 main points I just mentioned before, you can see in the fund industry. But the same goes actually for the bearer bond. But we see more traffic in the fund industry because this market is huge. The bearer bond is one financial instrument and the fund industry is there, and they have all nearly the same processes which you can solve or improve with this technology. But again, you know, we have this missing secondary market and the missing on-chain payments to really open up the whole potential. So
maybe Markus can help. Markus can implement such a secondary market.
Yeah, please, Markus, do that.
we can definitely do that. But I mean, from a activity point of view, I see it more on the bearer bond side because, like, you know, this is say infrastructure providers which have say the technology. I think in the fund industry, surely, I mean, I understand the case, and probably the market will be bigger. But the problem is like I think it's more fragmented, and the investment costs are really high. And my impression was so far that they have really interest for that, but they're waiting. I mean, truly there are startups, but I mean, from the point of like, you know, volume and activity, I see it more, say, on the bond side. But there will be also like shares. I mean, which hits more, I think, the retail market. I mean, it's maybe a little bit bigger. And I think for Q1 this year, we have this, I don't know how to translate it to German or to English, would be sounds weird, the Zukunftsfinanzierungsgesetz. So there will be like the crypto shares. So I think this is probably the next big thing. But I mean, I have the impression that in the fund industry, I mean, there's definitely interest, but I have the feeling that they're waiting more on the lines, and they lead the startups, like, you know, go forward.
They are working behind closed doors.
Yeah,
maybe if I can.
Maybe I come because time is running out. Max, you want to add something?
I just wanted to add something quickly to the fund industry that I think is interesting, right? I mean, like I said, we've looked at a lot of crypto funds. liquid crypto hedge funds. And what's interesting to me is that this tokenization of fund shares is actually not driven by these funds at all. It's driven more by really institutional fund managers, asset managers who have these big infrastructure costs associated with them, like as you mentioned, Clearstream, etc. Because for the small fund manager, being the only one with a tokenized fund doesn't make any sense, because there's no new distribution, there's no new sales that are going to come through it. People are going to use the traditional route anyways. So it's quite interesting that the adoption is coming from the other side in this regard.
Yeah, interesting point. We will extend the deadline of this webinar, of this panel discussion, by 2-3 minutes, because I want to go back to the questions posed by the audience, which people have on YouTube entered their questions. One question would be now from Evangelos, listening to us right now. He would now expect hundreds of regulated security token offerings for digital assets expect in Germany and in Europe this year or next year. Would you agree? Or, is it finally coming, the security token offerings? Is it something for startups? Is it something for the larger players? Is it maybe this year, maybe next year? Or will it be rather the utility tokens framed with the MiCA regulation coming next year? Any opinion?
Yeah, I think, digital securities is something which takes time. You have to build infrastructure. At least you have to build the registry, you have to build a custodian, you have to think, what Sandra was mentioning, how to organize the secondary market, like, with cryptos, this must be properly OTC. You have to build bolt-on boards. You have to build first infrastructure, and this is nothing which you can do, say, overnight. So it takes probably, I don't know, years, 1 to 2 years, and even longer. So it's a big undertaking.
Yeah, I would also expect the utility tokens in the MiCA to be more dynamic than security tokens, because they are dramatically less regulated than the security tokens, right? You don't have to wait for the approval of the regulator. You just have to provide a couple of documents, and then you can launch and issue your tokens, right? You are still liable for in case you're doing crazy stuff with your token, but at least you don't have to wait for approval. You just can put out a very small paper. That's very interesting. So I would argue to Evangelos, yes, I think the hype is coming, but it will take more time, and it will take a little bit. It might be slower than expected, but I could imagine that the utility token, according to MiCA, might be relevant. Another question is going back to the 98%, which we addressed in the first half, right? One question coming from Barnabas asking, it's interesting, the first names, right? We are having reached out to many countries, because Barnabas and Evangelos, that's not Germany's Frank and Manfred, right? That's people from, I don't know, probably Hungary and potentially Greece. Very cool. Okay, but Barnabas asked us, what about that's a very interesting question. What about projects and developments that are aiming to enable the 98% of the population to purchase crypto assets, but who are interacting with the decentral part of the ecosystem, not with the regulated part, right? Yeah, we have created these pillars, like 2% that's decentral and 98% that's the regulated entities. So can you mix it up? Are there any projects out there who are trying to tackle this 98%, but with decentral technologies?
I think it's very, very difficult, because at the moment you want to use a decentral technology, you need to get onto that technology, onto that chain somehow. So to onboard people, you will always need some form of on-ramp, which by the regulation we have has to be centralized. I think a bigger topic, and something that this word has come up throughout every discussion we've had about every topic, is education. And I think that's actually maybe the biggest trend we'll see in 2023, and the theme is education. And that's how we onboard people. That's
an interesting point. So to Barnabas, we would say now, yes, there are projects, but the projects might work indirectly through education, because with educated people, you can get parts of these 98% educated such that they can interact directly with the network. It's a very interesting point, Max. I would like to add one point. The crucial point is that very often the interface is central. That's, for example, the app, right? And the app has to be passed through the App Store of Apple, And there you have to have a registered company. So again, you will be essential, at least as an app, right? The web browser can be designed in a little bit more decentral way, but still, the website is also a central element. With this, we are approaching a very interesting topic, but that's something for next time, because how can you decentralize even the interface? And then we are, maybe you have heard about it, then we are in the domain of the Web 5, promoted within the Bitcoin ecosystem, where you are operating your own node, because then you can trust that your interface is also decentral, right? That's very, very interesting. I haven't fully understood everything here, but at least the decentralization of the interface part, that's something I found striking. But again, at this point of time, it's an idea, will be implemented. Let's discuss it in the next couple of months. Who wants to tell us the closing words?
But by the way, we have the chatbot, so we can actually maybe use AI to automatically generate the interfaces we need and connect directly to the nodes, just as a side mark.
Interesting point. Yeah, interesting point. So you're using chatbots as a decentral interface. Yeah, interesting point. Yeah, very interesting point. We'll think about it. Cool. Perfect. Any more points? Somebody wants to do the closing words?
Maybe just a quick quote, which I really like since I heard it, and it's from Charles Hoskinson. He's the founder of Cardano, and he once said, and I'm not sure whether it was exactly those words, but something like, the goal is to align the greed of humans with positive outcome. And I think blockchain is going exactly in that direction, because people want to have more transparency, they want to have lower costs, earning more control, more clarity, and I think this is why the ecosystem will be growing.
Yes, but we have to always, based on this freedom stuff, we always have to keep in mind that there are sometimes some Sam Bankman-Frieds out there who are raping us all, right?
That's unfortunately true.
Yeah. Perfect. Thanks for the very nice discussion. I learned a lot. And then let's close it down and let's meet back here with the next panel discussion in approximately 1 month. And with this, have a nice day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.